Welcome to Designing the Future. This series is a space for dialogue, reflection, and imagination, where Indigenous voices lead the way in rethinking the systems that shape our lives. From education and healthcare to governance, economies, and beyond, we'll explore how Indigenous knowledge, lived experience, and cultural wisdom can guide us towards a more inclusive and equitable tomorrow. The conversations you'll hear are grounded in story and spirit. They are not just ideas, but lived realities that carry both resilience and responsibility. Some of what we share may be sensitive, as it touches on histories of harm, systemic inequities, and ongoing struggles faced by Indigenous peoples. We encourage you to listen with openness and care, and to remember that healing and transformation come through truth, respect, and relationship. This is not simply a podcast or a video series. It's an invitation to imagine new possibilities, to engage critically, and to act collectively. Together, let's design a future that honors Indigenous knowledge and creates space for equity, dignity, and respect for all. I'm your host, Amber Mueller, and this is Designing the Future. All right, thanks everybody for joining me for this episode of Designing the Future. Today, we are going to be talking about Ministry of Children and Family Services. So a little bit of forewarning. I know that in the intro, we talk about extra care and taking necessary steps if you need additional support. It is a sensitive subject, so take that into consideration and reach out for help if it's necessary. So today we have my sister, Amber Mueller, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her story and what she experienced. And so I will let the viewers, I'll let you introduce yourself to the viewers and go into a little bit of context.
All right. So my name is Amber. I've been a single mom of 3 for almost 25 years. My oldest is 24. And so just a bit of what I've been dealing with them.
Yeah, whatever you want to share. So the goal of these and the conversations that we've been having are, where we're at, our experience. So for this particular, what your experience was with ministry. Mm-hmm. Because both of us have been involved in ministry. This is a huge issue for Indigenous families. One of the statistics I wanted to look up before we got here, I believe out of the roughly around 6,000 kids, 4,200 of them are Indigenous within BC, within ministry services. So we have massive overrepresentation. And often it is perpetuation and continuation of residential schools. Mm-hmm. And we ourselves as children, were involved in ministry. And and it just, where are we right now? Mm-hmm. Where do we want to be? I mean, because even our own nation is looking in the new year about, how do you, because nations are finally getting the ability to take back some of their sovereignty as far as how they can manage. I don't know if manage is the best word. I didn't want to use control, but how they can start to address it. And what you, from your personal experience, what you needed, what you received, and the gaps, because I know there is massive gaps, especially around culture and how do we even contend with. So, share a bit about your experience as much as you're comfortable. I know this is,
okay. So, like I said, my oldest is 24. Briefly, a couple times, I think I've dealt with ministry when she was young, but nothing major. It was open, it was shut, and so I didn't really have any experience until later on, more recently, when I had my younger two. And it was the start of COVID.
Yeah.
And there was a lot going on. Both of my kids I was dealing with diagnoses, breakdowns at school, meltdowns, like tantrums. And so I was going through a lot dealing that with just myself. And so I would drown myself a little bit with alcohol.
Absolutely.
And, having the kids home during that time 24/7 was really difficult. And I was looking outwards, right? And so at that time, I happened to meet someone that I probably shouldn't have. And that's actually what led to me having to deal with MCFD. Is just being around him, and it was his ex that ended up calling the ministry on me and making up a few things about me and my kids. And I had to basically like stand up for myself and say what I was doing and what was going on. And, I know I wasn't in the best position at the time, but my kids were still at my forefront best interest. And yet it wasn't really because of me why my kids got taken. It was because of the violent nature of the man that I was with.
Yeah.
And having my kids around that. And so basically they were making me choose. And in the time being, and I was actually out of town when the social workers went to my house and took the kids.
Yeah.
I wasn't in town. I was with him, headed to Vancouver for a funeral. He had lost his uncle.
Yeah.
And so my kids went to my oldest daughter. She was an adult at the time. But when I came back, like that was me getting a phone call on the way home. Like, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, that wasn't really a great feeling, and all the hoops that I've had to jump through in order to get them back.
Yeah.
I had to take anger management courses when I don't really feel like I'm an angry person.
I wouldn't say that either.
No, and I had to take like AA.
Yeah.
And show proof that I was going. When even that, I don't think alcohol has really been my issue.
No, I wouldn't say so either.
No. And it was just following others, wanting someone to be there for me, like not wanting to be alone, not wanting to do this on my own anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like this is friggin' tough to do on your own. And as Indigenous as well, like I've had a lot of things, like a lot of stereotypes, like because now it's disability. So, it's a step up. I can say I'm not on welfare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like just the stigma of everything. But, it took a long time, but it was 18 months.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a long time.
Of proving myself. And I mean, I'm thankful that I was able to choose where my kids went.
Yes.
And so they went to a couple from my church. And so, they made sure that we had that time together and, but it was supervised. Yeah. And I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated that my oldest daughter had to supervise me watching my younger kids.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I did just something so bad when I've been doing everything for them their whole lives. Well, and no one seemed to care until like that moment, right? Like
and that's exactly it, because when you talk about this, so many things up. First of all, we're not even dealing with trauma in the way that it needs to be dealt with. we're not even approaching it in a way that's helpful. The community care that we need isn't there as single mothers. And I mean, speaking from experience myself, it is absolutely soul crushing. And people just don't understand. They just can't understand. And then, when you think of even the requirements that you had to go through and the process of all these hoops that you had to jump that weren't even relevant to who you were or are as an individual, that make it make sense.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't. Because you're getting put into this box that isn't actually helpful for either you as an individual or your children, because it's automatically you're painted as, this particular type of person. No conversations are had as far as, what are the supports that you actually need? Because realistically speaking, and I mean, I don't necessarily know this, but what kind of second stage supports are there when children return to home other than just monitoring and things like that? You almost need a reintegration into so much more. I can't, the amount of support. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Cause it's okay, yay. I finally got to the point where I just needed to have a home.
Yeah.
I had left my husband and I was doing everything that I needed to do. I got a home and I got my kids back within moments of, it seemed at the time.
Yeah.
It just happened so fast, bang, bang, bang. And all of a sudden my kids are home with me and it's okay, I can't mess up.
Yeah.
I've got, people could be watching me anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So I have to be on my guard. And so, I mean, that's absolutely, even if I don't want to drink.
But that's so, that's so hard on somebody's nervous system too.
I know. Yeah.
That
anxiety.
Because we very much have a history of CPTSD, domestic violence from childhood, where situations where we had to flee, there was no supports, things like that. And
violence from my ex-husband too.
Yeah.
I've had to deal with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know from what I'm seeing, and I'm not in the position right now, but where are the supports for that? And there are some, but
counseling.
Not in the way, and this is the hard part because it's not, how do I phrase this? I just feel like if we're not on fire, and even if we are, people will stand there and let us burn. And how do we even start to address that? Because the people that are kind of helping and the people you see doing advocacy work and trying to help are former, when we're in class not too long ago, I was talking about, the majority of the students that I talked to through the First Nation Center at UNBC were all in ministry care or had some time they dealt with ministry care. And I'd probably say 90% of the students. Mm-hmm. It's actually harder to find somebody that hasn't dealt with ministry mm-hmm. than it is to find somebody that just has been untouched by it. Mm-hmm. So, and it's also reactive. And we all need counseling but I feel like it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Especially with CPTSD, because a lot of it's trapped in the body. And I'm not a medical expert, just a little caveat here. But, from the studies, they show us that talk therapy doesn't actually address a lot of that type of trauma. Mm-hmm. And find me an Indigenous person that doesn't have it.
Yeah. It could bring something up.
Yeah.
But then you have it in your hand right there. And it's okay, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
How do I deal with it? When it just becomes another thing.
Yeah.
Right? That you stress and worry about.
Well, I think it's compounding right now, too. You know, you look at the, we're in a state of emergency for drug use and things like that. Like it just, free counseling, you get a session maybe one every 2 weeks, maybe a month. That's one person.
Mm-hmm.
How many people, like when the entirety of the Indigenous population is looking for help and resources like this, the problem being is I don't think we actually know what we need either.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's so many fires.
Or where to begin.
Yeah.
Because there is so many things.
Yes.
Right? And that's how I feel like right now. Like I know I should be doing so many different things for myself and for my kids, but it's like where to start.
Well, you just go into executive like dysfunction and shutdown, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, because I think of child support, and I've looked at the process for child support myself, and it gets to, a lot of my work is looking at poverty and harm reduction. But one of the steps for child support is hiring a private investigator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is no person in poverty that is going to be hiring an investigator.
Well, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Like even for my youngest two, I don't get child support for them.
Yeah.
Because he is not allowed to have access to the kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he is.
Yeah.
I just know he can't be around. And so with that, like, where would I go to?
Exactly.
Like, as far as I know right now, he's on probation still, but not for very much longer.
Yeah.
Right? So what to do then? I know actually that thought had crossed my mind recently, thinking about that in child support and how, you should get it for your kids and it's for your kids. But the process to even attempt to, and would it be worth it?
It's inaccessible. That's exactly it, because the amount of time and effort based on the compensation you receive, especially if they're in poverty, like it just doesn't match up.
No, I've gotten $8 deposited in my account at one point.
Yeah,
for my oldest daughter.
I mean, that's not even lunch.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the amount of labor that has to go into it. And I mean, we're talking about just one aspect of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as somebody that's marginalized, because there's so many things. There's healthcare, income, and, all these different dimensions of poverty. And there's so many, different aspects and components of it that people are asked to know and understand. And it's just, I mean, it's so hard to contend with poverty. And I mean, we're high school graduates, yes, but not everybody is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it even harder. Because, when I think of our mom, I mean, she has a grade 6 education.
Yeah.
She can't figure out a lot of these things that she needs in order to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was looking at stat, again, roughly, I think it was like 56% of Indigenous adults don't have a high school education.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and it's getting more and more complicated with technology.
It is.
They're trying to streamline things and they're trying to make it easier, but it's actually making things much more complex.
I'm getting anxiety getting all these emails saying that, like, the school wants me to start using this school pay for field trips and signing things, and everything's going to be online. No.
Yeah.
I no.
Yeah.
I told the teacher, I'm like, can you send a hard copy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
and the problem being,
especially because you can't do it just from a phone.
Yes.
You have to register everything on a computer first.
Yeah.
And then you can access it on your phone.
Yeah.
But the getting me to the computer part has, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I'm like stuck in that.
Yeah.
Or in that, maybe in that defiance where why do I have to do that? Can't you just...
Yeah. it's funny you say that too, because I know even with my son too, and thinking about like the process of getting him diagnosed, the process with like Jordan's principal and all of that has been so difficult that I'm just at a standstill because I'm like, I don't have the spoons to do this. And that's what people don't understand. It's like, I don't even have whatever in me that is like, and I'm successful, like on paper, right? So I think a lot of it's, I mean, I think we're really missing that community piece in a lot of different ways. Because even coming back to the child support, trying to find any information on it was extremely, extremely difficult. And that in itself is a barrier because if you can't find anything right off the bat, people give up. I mean, that's what people don't understand. That's what learned helplessness is. It's the systemic pushback that you've constantly had in trying to access resources and help and support and constantly getting told no to the point where you just give up. Yeah. It is not because you want to give up or you know that it's necessary. But the problem being is when you've constantly been told no by the system and had all of these additional steps, you just know that it's not worth my time. It's just
Well, yeah, you go, oh, okay, this has something to do with child support. Yeah. Click on the link. Read all of this information, but it doesn't tell you how to apply. Yeah. Or where to go or what to do. Like, that's what I did the other day. I was clicking links and just reading, but I got so overwhelmed.
So were there any supports that you did find helpful throughout all of this?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think the counseling did help. Like the counselor that was there for me, I met with him and I think having that man point of view as well helped a lot in what I needed because that is what I lack in my life. Yeah. And so, I did end up stopping and haven't gone in a few years, but like I said, kind of once I had my kids home, it's just been focused around being at home and my kids too, they're homebodies as well, so we just all stay home, right? And that's the thing. Like I'm glad that they're older now, but like I was saying, I being sick all weekend. Not able to do anything. I'm glad that they can take care of themselves. Yeah. But that still gave me an anxious feeling like I should be getting up. I should be doing this for them. I should be, I should be taking care of them. Like, what if someone finds out? Yeah. Right? Just still the what ifs.
It stays with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's something to consider because even with counseling, what kind of additional supports are there? So, I mean, for myself, one of the reasons I actually initially attended university is because I wanted to build exit services for Indigenous youth in ministry care. So I had become my own legal guardian at 16. I lived on welfare. I wasn't giving counseling. Nobody talked to me about life skills. And I know it's changed since then, to my understanding. A little bit. Yeah. There are some, I know that, we do have some organizations that particularly help with that. So there has made some headway. Even going back to the youth episode with our other sister, we were talking about community and what youth really need as far as their support and things like that. Because even with your kids, do you feel that they got the support that they needed?
No, I don't believe so. I think they just, knew they were living with friends at the time and auntie and And then they just came home and it was just back to normal.
Yeah.
But I also think in that same way, I felt like I've tiptoed and maybe let them get away with things that I wouldn't have before because I don't want to cause issues or, it's just, oh, whatever, I'll just let that slide. And so now I've been letting that slide for so long. It's like, okay, how do I stop that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really valid point. I know
because I don't have anyone else with me. Like the schools, actually my daughter's school, she has a team of the Indigenous worker, a social worker. She's got her teacher. She's got another TA in her class. And they all, like when they all can recognize when she needs a break. And they're there to help her. That so she is staying at school. So it's been great since that transition to the new school.
Yeah, that's amazing because I think we do really need that wraparound support. Even this year for my son too, I'm noticing that that extra TA support and the extra what he needs because his oversensory and things like that has made a world of difference.
Even a friends help too. Like my daughter was actually excited to tell me about her doing math.
Oh.
And how she got it all right.
Oh, that's awesome.
And how she loves fractions. And I'm like, awesome. Because that's something that I know that she has always struggled with understanding and grasping.
Yeah.
So for her to finally like get that and be excited and say, yeah, my friend, like she corrected it right there and she said it was all right. And, she was excited to tell me about that. And I'm
that's
like,
cool.
Awesome. But high school is a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit harder.
Yeah.
I have been having more issues with my son in that regard.
So what kind of supports for yourself and for your kids would you have liked to see or would like to see?
I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the tough part because I mean, when you've been in lack and, fight or flight for so long, it's hard to even conceptualize what anything other than that would be.
Yeah, because, I usually, like I said, I stay in my bubble.
Yeah.
I stay in my home. I'd love for people to come visit me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that brings such anxiety.
Yeah.
Especially if my house is a bit messy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't really want to go out sometimes.
I mean,
either.
that's trauma for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and when I go out, it's like, I'll go out to my usuals.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't really venture far. Not unless I have purpose, and I don't know.
It's so funny because I keep asking myself, and I've asked myself quite a bit throughout the series as well. What has my healing journey been like? What does it look like? Because and I mean, even with yourself, even though, you still struggle, you've made notable differences and you've made change. Even thinking about in terms of relationships and things like that. Like, I mean, for myself, I've been single for 6 years because I know that there were aspects from living in a home with domestic violence that carried with me. And I know now that my son has never experienced that. And that in itself is generational.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I mean, my hope would be for more. I don't think people realize that sometimes that's as good as it gets for some people. And I mean, that's huge. There's a lot of people that can't even get out of that cycle.
Yeah.
And how do we reach in and pull people out? Is that even possible? I think, I've never even thought about this before, but I think if we create doors, because I think that's what we're lacking right now, is there's not enough exit/entry points for people to make those changes.
Yeah.
Particularly Indigenous-led, because with so much trauma and so much hardship, we don't trust systems. We don't trust institutions. We don't trust ourselves. And I think that's a huge epiphany for me right now, to be honest.
Here.
So who can we trust, and what does, oh man, I've been trying not to cry the whole time. But what does a safe place look like? Because that's what we're actually, I think, my research has asked for that. Safe and inclusive spaces, psychological safety, representation, being Indigenous-led. And I think, a lot more with these community consultations. But I mean, for the most part, people don't realize that the majority of Indigenous populations aren't status. There's a lot of non-status individuals that are still carrying this trauma, on our mom's side, for example.
Yeah.
We just found out she can get treaty rights, but they were sold.
Yeah, that's so early in advance.
Yeah, but they were sold. And she is just as much Indigenous, actually more Indigenous than our dad is. And all that side of the family can't get support or resources.
No.
And they're just
or
left.
Healthcare. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, healthcare. Yeah.
Even something as simple as that. Yeah.
Oh, man. We're getting close to needing to wrap up, but I want to, I was sitting in the dentist's office a little while ago, and there was this young Indigenous woman, and she had her little son out there, maybe 1 or 2 years old, and her other son was in the dentist's office, and the hygienist came out and said, we had to stop. He kept touching the instruments, and it reminded me of my son. And she started crying because she's like, I can't afford another visit. And I started crying too, because I just felt that from the depths of my soul. Yeah. And before I could even intervene, and I don't even know if that was my place, because in reality, that's $100-$200. Yeah. You're going to send a child away for that amount of money and let him be in pain because of $100 to $200. Like, I just couldn't. This is why I can't even imagine. And I mean, I'm certain that that's not the only time that's happened. And then I got whisked away, and I didn't even have time to process or to help or to do anything. And I think that is the epitome of our system right now.
Yeah.
There are people that can't even do anything. And not only are they in pain, but their children are in pain. And we just don't have the support and resources that we need. What do we need to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had the answers. And the only thing that I can come up with is having conversations like this, starting to try and mobilize people to work together, to share resources, because we know that the system is overtaxed. I mean, when you think of ministry and things like that, even support groups or potentially, I don't know. So any last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, but thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being so brave. And I know I've watched your path, and I'm so proud of you and everything you've done to get to where you are. So
thank you.
All right. Thanks.